G'day guys, Matt Brand here. I'm currently editing the review you're about to watch, but I want to give a quick disclaimer. I actually reviewed this car a couple of months ago now, and usually I release the review a week, 2 weeks after I've reviewed it, but this one I haven't, because frankly, I was really harsh to the car, probably too harsh, but I do stand by everything that I'm going to be saying in this review. Since reviewing this car, I was invited to the launch of the plug-in hybrid version, and I've released that review, so go watch that after this one. And really, that showed what this car could be if you go for a higher trim. But this LS, which is one of the base models, really not that great, so enjoy the review.
G'day guys, Matt Brand here. Today I'm reviewing the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, which, fun fact, this was actually meant to replace the Mitsubishi ASX. You know, that ancient thing that's been on sale since 2010. When this thing was originally released back in 2017, it flopped hard. And so within the space of just 3 years, they facelifted this thing and they changed quite a lot. They made this thing longer, made it look a bit different, changed the interior a bit, but all that was done in a bit of a vain attempt because it really still has not been selling very well. The Eclipse Cross really does perfectly showcase the issues that Mitsubishi are having at the moment. This thing is fine in most areas, it's lagging behind in some pretty critical areas, and then you combine that with the fact that it costs more than its equivalent competitors. Really, the only thing that this car has going for it is that it has a 10-year warranty, which is awesome, and that the drivetrain is likely going to be very reliable going forward, although time will tell on that. I'm not saying from the get-go that this is a bad car, but you know, if it was my money, I wouldn't buy it. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly why. Now, the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross competes with some, frankly, stiff competition like the Toyota RAV4, the Hyundai Kona, the Kia Seltos, the Mazda CX-5, the Subaru XV, and the Honda CR-V. Today, we're going to be doing a detailed review of the Mitsubishi Eclipse. I'm going to show you everything that's new. I'm going to show you the exterior, interior, how it drives. And if you haven't done so already, I would love it if you go down there and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell too, so you can see every time I release average cars like this. So today I'm driving the LS all-wheel drive, which is second from the bottom of the range. It starts at just under $37,000 dues drive away. You can get into a base model Eclipse for just over 30 grand, though that is front-wheel drive, and also incredibly bare bones. So pricing is already a mark against the Eclipse Cross. Competitors like the stupidly named Kia Seltos Sport Plus cost about the same and are second from the top in the range and come way better loaded than this. And most competitors allow you to at least spec an active safety pack to their car. This thing really doesn't have much in terms of active safety, which is exactly what you need if you have a family car. Thankfully, you do get a great little drivetrain. It's a pretty punchy 1.5 litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine. Pumps out 110 kilowatt of power and 250 newton meters of torque, which is surprisingly good for a Japanese car. Usually these things are woefully underpowered, but this doesn't feel it. It is paired to a CVT, a continuously variable transmission, and generally speaking, those are the bane of a car reviewer's existence, because as I will now demonstrate by giving it some sauce, well, they're loud. They're loud and they're difficult to repair. They're very complicated because they have pulleys and cones and chains, and it's just confusing. They don't have any real gears. They're just moving parts. But actually, the pairing here is really good. It really does complement this little petrol engine quite well. Always allows you to be in the right amount of revs for this engine, and it does help with fuel economy too. So I really don't have any complaints. And as I said earlier, this is the all-wheel drive, so you can get this car as front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and I highly recommend you go for all-wheel drive. It just feels just so much better. It's more balanced because you just have more grip. It is a better setup. So yeah, I mean, this drivetrain, it's certainly not the best in class, but it's up there. It's surprisingly good. Actually, one of the funniest things about this CVT is it's got those fake gears. So it's got 8 gears. It doesn't. But you have some of the nicest paddle shifters in any car ever. I'm talking like Ferrari level nice. They're column mounted metal, feel really good to press, and you can shift between the 8 fake gears of the CVT. It's like so unnecessary, but kind of fun at the same time. And of course, being a Mitsubishi, you can probably bet your bottom dollar that this drivetrain will last more than the 10-year warranty that it comes with. So yeah, I have no complaints about the drivetrain. I think it's fine. However, there is more to talk about with how this thing drives in general, but we'll come back to that. For now, I want to talk about how it looks. Okay, so moving to the exterior of the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross. To be honest, I'm one of the people that think it actually looks pretty good. Starting up front, we get a massive grille. You get these chrome bits that kind of just run across the entirety of the front, but it's pretty cool. I think the daytime running lights look pretty sweet. They're actually really, really bright. And here, well, these aren't great. This is a halogen bulb, this is an LED bulb. Not the best setup out there, and when they're all on together, it looks a bit odd. Still, I think it's actually one of the better looking crossovers out there. To the side here, and we have these 18-inch wheels, and they're actually a pretty decent design. Like, I was pretty surprised when I saw them. I think it goes well with this blue paint, which just pops off in light. Just like you would expect from any modern SUV, get heaps of these sharp lines that kind of just cut into the body. You get black plastic cladding absolutely everywhere. Privacy glass here, and that just means that it's factory tinted, which is pretty cool. Blacked out roof rails up top again, pretty nice touch. And then here you'll notice that it's literally like a coupe. So this thing is 140 millimeters longer than the previous Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross that was only released like 3 years ago. So it's kind of funny, but that does translate to more space in the back. As we'll see, the wheelbase actually hasn't been extended at all. And then coming to the back here, and I mean, it's a pretty decent look. It's always looked a little bit odd to me. Like, they say that this part here is meant to look like a spare tire, but how? I really like the tail lights though. I think they look really mean, especially at nighttime. They've got this like 3D effect. It's very cool. I really like how they spell out the Eclipse badge here too. Very cool. But otherwise, I mean, it's just, it's pretty basic. Oh, but quickly talking about the boot, which is pretty heavy. This tailgate, I don't know, it shouldn't be so heavy. Maybe it's the gas struts aren't that great. But anyway, inside there is plenty of space back here. This is all my filming gear and also the cargo cover, which, I mean, whatever. And then if you push down the seats, you do get plenty of space in here too. So it is a very practical SUV. And so the outside looks really decent, but it's the inside that really fails to impress me. Let's go talk about that. Okay, so what about the interior? And I want to start with the overall look, layout, and feel. Really, the interior is where things go downhill very quickly for me. Let's start with the good. And the good is that it's a very functional layout. Everything is where you would logically expect it to be. You know, you could really get into this thing and anyone can drive it. They know where everything is. You also get soft touch materials dotted all around the cabin, and it helps to reduce the noise floor in this car. It is quite quiet in here when you're just driving around for a budget car anyway. Storage is decent. You get 2 big cup holders in the center, 2 massive door bins. The glove box is a pretty big size and it's 2-tiered too, which is cool. And the center armrest, despite having a very annoying design where it's like, I don't know, is that concave or something? It hurts to rest your arm there. But anyway, on the inside, there is plenty of room in there. So I don't have any complaints about that. Thankfully, you do get a couple of USB ports up front and a 12-volt socket. So there's plenty of ways to charge devices. No wireless charging pad, but I mean, honestly, this is like the last car I would expect to have that anyway. But for me, that's kind of where the good ends and the bad begins. Straight up, this thing feels cheap, really cheap in here. The switch gear is just nasty. Like, honestly, it feels straight out of the 90s. It's really bad. And then you just have some weird and then poor choice of materials. You have this like fake carbon fiber on the door. Don't know what that's about. It extends also to the infotainment screen. It's just such a strange choice in a car that could only ever be described in total opposite terms to sporty. But that's just strange choice. I can live with that. What I hate is the amount of black piano plastic. And I don't just hate it because it's like a color I don't like. I hate it because it's the most unfunctional thing in a family car. This car is a press car. It has done a lot of kilometers, admittedly. We're almost on 7,000. Having said that, this whole dash is scratched to no hell. It's smudgy and scratched. It's gross. It's got to be probably the worst choice for any family car ever. I don't know why anyone in their right mind would have chosen that material. Excuse me while I give it some passive aggressive twisty sauce. Oh my God. Yeah, this is an SUV. This is very much an SUV. Oh, come on. Come on. I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna hold on for dear life as I tackle these corners. But probably the worst offender in this entire cabin are these seats. These seats are just awful. And I don't say that lightly. I'm not saying that to be contentious. They're really bad. They feel horrifically cheap. Horrifically cheap. I haven't sat in such a poor quality seat in as long as I can remember. First of all, they look so old, so dated. They don't provide much support. There's no lumbar support or anything like that. They just feel like slabs of foam. You roll around in them when you're turning a corner, even, you know, mildly hard. They just are not fitting for a car that costs 38 grand. They're just not. You know, competitors at this price will give you leather seats. That's where you should be thinking. You know, even the air conditioning controls just feel cheap and nasty, like really cheap and nasty to touch. Completely functional, I'll give them that, but they don't feel nice. I guess what I'm trying to say is that this car, it just doesn't live up to its price tag. And in such a hyper competitive environment, small SUV segment, probably the most hotly contested car segment at the moment, because everyone wants to have a small SUV, it just can't live up. It cannot live up to its price tag. To point out something decent, the steering wheel is quite nice. It's quite a hard leather, to be honest, but it feels fine to grab onto. You know, the button layout is very functional, if not, again, cheap feeling. You get loads of black piano plastic on it. Like, why? Why? It smudges, it scratches, it gets dirty. I just don't understand why. Anyway, like, otherwise it's pretty nice. It's nice to hold on to. But then again, you move forward to the instrument cluster. It has to be one of the oldest feeling instrument clusters in any modern day car. You can't even control it from the steering wheel. You have to press here. Why? And it doesn't show anything useful like speed readout. I mean, it shows you your fuel usage. You might as well just have like a physical gauge for that. Why is there no speed readout? You want to know what the honest answer probably is? It's probably that the refresh rate is too low or something like that. It's old technology. It's functional enough, yes. On the left-hand side, you have your tachometer. On the right-hand side, you have your speedometer. But it's just super basic, super basic. Like, guys, I know I'm complaining, but my job to you is to be honest. And what I'm honestly just getting at is that this car is kind of just like a tick the box exercise rather than going out of their way to make a car that's genuinely good. You know, if Mitsubishi hopefully don't hate me after this review, I will be going to the Outlander, the new Outlander launch. And I'm so excited for that because from what I can see, it's going to be a rebirth of Mitsubishi, which they desperately need, because this is just showing of all of their issues at the moment, which is making a new car that feels like it's straight from early 2000s. Anyway, the infotainment display, it's decent enough. There's no maps or navigation, again, something you often see at this price point. But it does have digital radio, which is great. It does have Android Auto. It's not the brightest screen in the world, but it's functional enough, snappy enough. I actually quite like it. It's certainly one of the better screens out there, especially for a Japanese car, which is not saying that much, to be honest. I will say that the back seats are pretty good with an asterisk. You have probably class-leading legroom, headroom, and toe room. Heaps of room back there. You could easily fit 3 adults back there, and that's very good. What isn't great is you get the same choice of material as up front. These incredibly uncomfortable seats because the padding in them, the foam, is really dense. You don't feel like you're sitting on a seat, you feel like you're sitting on a log. It's very dense. So on longer journeys, it's actually not that comfortable despite the loads of room you have back there. So yeah, I mean, the interior, I really can't sugarcoat it. Again, I have to be honest with you, it's not great. It feels like a rental car in here, and a base model one at that. And when you're spending 38 grand on this kind of car, you hope for more, you expect more, especially considering the stiff competition that this thing has. You know, it's a real shame, but to me, it's no real surprise that this thing hasn't been selling as well as maybe they would have hoped. You know, the interior itself is practical and you can learn to live with its shortcomings, but I'm being hard on this car because it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It has a lot of its competitors, and I think, I don't know, man. I'm just disappointed. Okay, so let's get out of the interior and let's get back to how this thing drives. I actually don't mind the way it drives. It is very SUV-esque, but I'm really happy that they've prioritized comfort over sportiness. All too many SUVs these days are just trying to be sports cars when they have nothing to show for it. But what you get here is a very comfortable, calm, compliant ride. It is really one of those cars that you just have one hand on the steering wheel and you cruise along. It's very comfortable. Suspension is very well dampened, especially around town. On these back roads, it does kind of fall apart a little bit. I don't have much confidence when I am turning a corner, but I mean, that's not really what it's designed for. It's really designed to take you from your home, to drop your kids off, to go to the shops and back home. And it does that with absolute ease. Steering is light, but it's still precise. I actually really like the steering and handling, especially around town. It's got a great turning circle. So getting in and out of spots is super easy. Really can feel like it can turn on a dime. You know, there is a lot of body roll, Well, it doesn't feel confidence inspiring as we turn a corner here. But it's okay. As I said, I'm actually happy that this thing is tuned for comfort and not being a sports car, so I'm certainly not going to take away any points for it. You do get a few different driving modes. You get this Eco mode, which is separate to the other driving mode buttons. And it's funny because Eco is always in the gauge cluster, but then if you press Eco mode, then you get 2 eco things in the gauge cluster. It's like, why? That's like double eco. And then you have this SAWC button here. All it really does is change the responsiveness of the all-wheel drive system, nothing really else. By the way, in terms of fuel economy, I'm getting about 9 liters per 100 kilometers, though that is with a lot of city driving, so that's actually pretty decent. So should you buy a Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross? While this car does have a lot of shortcomings, the thing that really will make this car sell, if at all, is that it comes with a 10-year warranty and that it is probably the most bare bones basic kind of car out there. You get into it, you start it, you go, and that's it. If that's what you're looking for, you're gonna absolutely love this car. It is a comfortable car, it's got a good drivetrain to it. It does have one of the worst interiors in its segment. It doesn't have almost any active safety in this model anyway, and it costs quite a lot more than its equivalent competitors without delivering as much features. It's not quite the value proposition I would be going for, but I can almost understand why some people do. But let me know what you guys think of the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross down in the comment section below. I know that this video is going to get a lot of hate from owners of this car, but I mean, I'm telling it as it is, right? That's my job. So if you like this video, please do leave it a thumbs up. We need to get that like-dislike ratio up. Of course, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell as well. I'd love to have you around. And as always, I'll see you next week.